Okay, quick fun story from my past I want to share with you. Has some relevance to ethics. It was like my other Army story, it's a long time ago, and it has been something I've thought about quite a bit. This one's kind of just funny, really. We went to a ski Austria trip from Germany. We had administrative leave to do that, which means we didn't have to use our own leave time, so it was a lot of fun. We went up to ski. I'm no great skier, but I had bought some really long skis, which are hard to navigate, hard to ski on, from a friend of mine, and kind of touted myself as a good skier because I grew up for some years in Colorado, but I really wasn't a great skier. And I went with the whole troop. There was probably 50 guys on the bus, but one of the guys was one of my best friends named Majikowski. Majikowski was a cook and a good friend because he would work the night shift a lot of times and have make the pastries and Cinnabons and stuff like that. And in the Army, the Cinnabons aren't really good in the morning because they were made at night, but they're pretty good when they're just right out of the oven. So I benefited that a lot. And so Majikowski and I were hanging out on the bus ride, and when we entered into Austria, we picked up our tour guide, our ski tour guide, our instructor. Now there's 50 guys and one instructor, so this person wasn't going to do a lot of one-on-one tutoring with us. I don't really know what the point was, but she was part of the package. And she was an okay, attractive lady for Majikowski and I. Now, keep in mind, we were in an all-male unit, so any female was pretty attractive probably to us at that point. And it just so turns out that when she got on the bus, she sat in the front, and Majikowski and I were in the front two seats. And during the time we got to know her a little bit, it became kind of a competition between he and I to gain her affections. And it was all lighthearted. We were just having a good time. At some point, I happened to mention that I had quite magical hands and that I was very good at massaging. And of course, she was an athletic, sports-oriented person and always had, tight shoulders and everything. So I remember that there was a particular moment when I had my hands on her shoulders and traps, and I was massaging her. And it was dark. It was nighttime. It was dark in the bus, except for just a few lights in there. And I remember looking over at Majikowski, and I could see the glow of his face, and his eyes were wide open as he watched me with my hands on this woman's back. And the competition just continued, all in good fun. The next day we got up early to go skiing, and we had made arrangements with the ski instructor. I think her name was Ingrid, or at least that's what I choose to remember her as. When we went skiing, she was an expert skier. And so we were just kind of caught up in this whole competition and focused on Ingrid rather than on our skiing or where we were going. And I remember we took like a chairlift first, and then we got on some kind of gondola. Now, in the Alps, it's a little different than Colorado. In Colorado, you typically know that you're getting on the big gondola and you're going way, way, way up. In the Alps, there's lots of different hills. You go up and down, up and down. We skied a little bit, but we ended up taking more chairlifts and then some gondola type, enclosed lifts. In any case, we found ourselves very quickly, still in the morning, within the first hour of our skiing / transport up the mountain, really at the top of something big. And it was a Black Diamond ski slope. So those are the expert slopes. This particular one had lots of moguls. It was a very complex ski down, and neither Majikowski or I were at all equipped for this. And I remember pulling up to the edge and looking down. It would look like it was straight off a cliff, and it had rained, so it was very icy. The moguls were very icy. I didn't even know how to ski moguls very well, period, but these were like icebergs. And Ingrid was, off, and she said, "I'll see you at the bottom," and she headed off, and Majikowski and I looked at each other and thought, what have we gotten ourselves into? We had a choice. We could get back on the chairlift or the gondola and go back down the slope and be humiliated and really lose, I think, the fight or the competition for Ingrid, or we could go for it. So Majikowski went first, and it was foggy still in the morning, and so I really couldn't see much. I only heard him as he made his way down the mountain, and it didn't sound pretty. I heard slapping of his skis against moguls, which was clearly indication he was out of control, and then I heard a wipeout. And somehow he must have gotten up and eventually made it down. I don't really know how that went for him, except it went poorly, which didn't make it any easier for me because he was probably a better skier than I was. So I went to attempt this run, and about 5 feet after the edge, I fell. Before I even hit a mogul, really, right before the first mogul. And I fell in such a way that I was facing up the hill, and my poles or straps around my wrists, and I was facing up the hill with my arms spread eagle. My legs were crossed so that the tips were facing in, which means my legs were bound somewhat. And anytime I moved, I would begin to slide down the mountain. And so I felt quite helpless. And I remember laying there thinking to myself, as I would look down the hill and the fog and the treacherous glass ice moguls, I remember thinking, how in the world did you ever get here? What possessed you to put yourself in a situation where you have to go down a hill like this? Now I have no choice. I can't go up. I can't go down. I simply, at some point, I mustered all the courage I had to just begin to slide and get my legs crossed in the same direction. And before I knew it, I was going full speed, squatted down because I hadn't stood up yet, just smacking the hard moguls, hitting the tops and going blisteringly fast before I had quite a wipeout. I didn't break any bones or anything, but it was pretty rough crash. And from there, it really just got worse until the very bottom, in which case, of course, I stood up and got the snow off me and said, "Hi, Ingrid," and that was awesome. What a lie. But the question really was, how did I get myself in that situation? And I gave the example earlier of the pencils in the back of my Camry, and I think it's the same type of thing. What I did was I allowed myself to have there were small moral failures. There were little decisions I made that didn't have really any bad consequence. I followed Ingrid up one slope and down, up and down. I paid attention to certain things and not to other things. And I think that's the way moral failures occur. Usually people don't get up in the morning, good people that otherwise, aren't engaged in big moral failures, unethical behavior. I don't think they wake up in the morning and say, today I'm going to do something truly awful. I think most times we're conditioned because we engage in things that are just pushing the boundaries, but there are not any great moral consequences to it. An example might be a man or a woman flirting with another person but not having an affair. The danger in that is obviously there's not a negative consequence for it, so they continue and it progresses and perhaps it grows to the point where then you do have some trouble. So I often think about this. I call it the slippery slope example because I never intended to be at the top of a Black Diamond ski run looking down wondering what's the best of two awful scenarios for me. I felt really stuck, and it took me a while to realize that I put myself on top of that hill. I put myself in that situation, and there was really no choice but to go down the hill. I had made my bed, and now I have to lay in it. So as you're thinking about your own ethical behavior, think about the consequences in your life that are small, but heading you in perhaps the wrong direction. I think the next video I'm going to make is about a young lady who had the same kind of problem. She ended up going to jail for that. So stay tuned for that. Coming up live.